We're here to talk about audio?
Yes.
Well, when you say measure a room to determine the best seat, how would you determine that?
By response to the location that the mic's in.
But response is probably less important than the reverberant characteristics at that location. In other words, the impulse
I would imagine
response
both would be
probably more important to how the
actual ear would hear it.
Yes. And again, if you were looking at the frequency response, are you looking at the frequency response on a steady state basis? So if let's say your seat, your imaginary seat, was in the reverberant field past critical distance, the response you could get the response to look great, but it probably sounds like gack.
But the impulse response wouldn't tell you if there's like a bass alley there or a big knoll.
Well, it would if you look into it in greater detail. So your FFT, your frequency response, is derived from the impulse response. So when you record this impulse, you have your chirp, you're literally taking a digital recording of that at a certain time window. And if you look at the impulse itself, that's your impulse response. The recording is the impulse.
Okay.
When you do an FFT, you're taking that impulse and doing a fast Fourier transform to look at the frequency content in that impulse. So in that impulse recording, so that's a sample that's not just of whatever, it's a certain length. There's a window. So it's taking that sample, that's an impulse, and it's then performing an FFT transfer on it and showing you the frequency content of that impulse, right? You could, and you can, get the phase content of that impulse. That's what your phase plot is, right? But they're all being derived from that impulse. And it's looking at all that shit. It's looking at the time and level and frequency and phase. Right?
And it's just a bunch of impulse responses as you're seeing in real, essentially looks like real time, right?
You're seeing a transfer function plot of the impulse, and they both are occurring fast enough that it appears to be moving.
Right.
That's how motion pictures work.
Right. That actually makes a lot of sense now. Please do not share this with anybody. This stays here just for the brain trust.
Well, we got to put up on the web tonight.